This is the story of how I moved states alone on 3 days' notice in a half-built Sprinter van after losing over $100,000 in just a month. This was easily the most stressful time of my life, and despite that, or because of that, I had to think on my feet and ended up building a multiple six-figure personal training business. This wasn't my intention, although it was a nice surprise. It only took about 4 months since I started it to really take off. And it's funny because I was doing DoorDash and Uber Eats for supplemental income at the time. All right, wait, hold on. Let me back up just a second. If you aren't caught up on part one, go ahead and watch it here first to understand what I'm talking about. But basically, I'm driving to Texas from California in a half-built Sprinter van, meaning I had significant money in it and it was hardly functional, especially to live in. I was basically homeless. I had my dog with me too, and it's the middle of summer, and also had to be very mindful of that. It was in the middle of the pandemic and the national parks were shut down, but I didn't know that. So on my way out to Texas, I was woken up at 3 a.m. by some cops who let me know the deal. So I left and I was heading towards Dallas, but heard Austin was cool and I'd never been there, so I stopped by and I fell in love immediately. Apparently there's a ton of Californians moving to Austin and I get the appeal. So I decided to stay, but it's so hot that I couldn't stand not having a room or a place to stay with air conditioning. With the investment money I made, I got a motel room at a few different motels for the next few weeks. With everything settling in at this point, I'm not in survival mode as much, and I knew that these motels would be much more expensive than a year lease at some apartment, but I didn't even know what my life was at this point. So I ended up getting a lease in a nice apartment since the rates here are astoundingly lower than California with similar lifestyles, but then I had a problem. Since I decided to sell my van because I just had nothing left in me to finish it, I ended up sitting in my unfurnished apartment for nearly 3 months in a deep depression, not knowing what to do. Sad because I felt like a complete failure, loser, and outcast, and anxious because I put all my eggs in one basket and I was left with pretty much nothing. Adding insult to injury, I had about $40,000 of my own money in that van that I had bought 3 months prior with about $40,000 of debt. I kept having to lower my prices until it sold. After months and hundreds of insulting lowballs, I found a buyer at $55,000. That was able to pay off a loan, and I was able to put a little bit extra cash in my pocket. I was able to get a rental car. I went straight down to Houston, bought myself a used Prius for like 10 grand, and started doing DoorDash and just trying to get my life back together. So much has happened by this point, and I hardly know who I am, where I live, what I'm driving, what I'm doing. It was pretty chaotic. I finally decided I'd just get another job after vowing to never do that again after getting let go. So I became a personal trainer. Pretty much started my own business and contracted with a company who would send me leads. They were taking 40% of any revenue that I was able to generate with those leads, and I was still able to make $40 to $50 an hour, and all they were doing was setting me up with the lead that they got online, and then I would just go in, do a consultation with them, and I had to sell them, and then I had to train them, and then do pretty much everything from there. So I looked into it and figured out how to get my own leads, and it started to work like magic. So I left them and built my own thing, and after about 6 months of deciding to be a personal trainer, I'm now training over 20 influential and high net worth individuals and couples in Austin, Texas, making about $12,000 to $15,000 a month. Then I proceeded to spend the next 2.5 years working hard on that business. Unfortunately, since I was making pretty good money, I started to gamble a lot of it away before realizing I was picking up a really bad gambling addiction. And the reason I was getting into all of this was because I had so much unresolved trauma, so much unprocessed trauma that was just coming out in the ugliest ways, the ugliest, most self-destructive ways. But I also started dating again and found a really amazing girl out here, and I'm thankful to God that we met because she's helped me process a lot of this stuff. My life has finally come to a place where it's settling down from all that chaos, and I'm still struggling deeply with my childhood traumas. Don't get that twisted. Which leads me to this point. I think the best course of action now for my life is to continue down this path that I've forged for myself and to take you with me. Because it's one thing to just sit in front of a camera and tell you all the things that I've done and how you can do it, whatever, but that's all bullshit. If I can change my life, then that does 10 times more for you than telling you how to do something or what to do or how I was able to do something. That's why I'm staying anonymous right now, because it's not about me. It's about the mission. And speaking of the mission, I'll finish with this. I'm building a clothing brand. It's called New American Standard. It's the reason I'm actually here right now, because I'm building this for people like me. People who struggle but find strength in it. People who are alone and afraid. People who fight with their demons daily. People who see the problems in America has faced and has become so weak and frail. I want to lead by example and show you how to lead by example as well. I believe this is how we will heal America and be a strong nation once again. So click the link in the description to join the New American Standard movement.